Grant Callen, founder and CEO of Empower Mississippi. Grant, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
Rain's not hitting the ground outside, is it?
Not yet, but we need some.
Now, the radar shows it's raining. It is so dry, it's sucking it up.
It's not a lick on my windshield coming in.
You know anybody in state government can rectify that?
I think you need to know somebody higher up than that.
A little bit higher than that. All right, let's talk about this. Charter schools in our state, the movement is on. We've made some progress. It seems to me that the need is greater than what's being delivered. But your thoughts on this?
Oh, that's certainly true. There's some good news and some as there always is. There's some challenging news. So we have 10 charter schools that are open and operating that are providing great options for families in corners around the state. And really the great news is that we just got through a charter application cycle, and the first charter high school in the state was approved to open, and that's in Clarksdale, and it's Clarksdale Collegiate that Amanda Johnson has operated an elementary school and a middle school, and now they've been approved to open a high school, and it's just going to be wonderful for the kids in Clarksdale. Lord knows they need more options there.
You watch this pretty closely. Do you think we're making it harder than it needs to be to get into this business, or is it just one of the things that's a good thing? In other words, it's going to increase the survivability the tougher it is to get in?
Oh, I think it is too hard.
You do? But
there's also plenty of folks that have applied who probably needed to be told to come back another year. They weren't quite ready. So it's not about saying yes to everybody. We just got to make sure we say yes to the right folks. And something like 80+% of the applicants over the last 10 years have been denied by the Charter Authorizer Board. But I think there is a growing interest by board members to say yes more and to try and get higher quality applicants. So one of the projects we launched a couple years ago that is starting to really pay some dividends is a project called Embark, where we come alongside school founders. And if any of your listeners out there are interested in starting either a charter school or a private school anywhere in Mississippi, we want to help you build your plan, go through the application process, put your board together, find a facility, all the things it takes to do a startup. And, Amanda Johnson's school in Clarksdale was our first Embark fellow that we spent a year working with, helping make sure her application was ready. And I'm pleased she got approved. Now we just got to do more and more of that. Recruit great people to start schools, help them know what it takes, help them see what the Charter Authorizer Board is looking for, and get more open. But I'll tell you, one other thing that has been a real challenge of late is, charters under the 2013 law have to be in a failing school district, a D or an F rated district, unless you want to get permission from the school district. You can do that in an A, B, or C district. But you and I both know that's unlikely to happen in the short term. And currently, so just 2 years ago, there were 40 districts rated D or F, or just under 40, I think. Today, there are only 6 districts in the entire state that are rated D or F. And yes, there are some districts that are doing a lot better, but there's a lot that are not back up to where they were 2 years ago, but the model emphasizes some of the wrong things. And so it's not we've got to open up more districts. We got to make sure there are more opportunities for people who want to start great schools to open charter schools.
Grant, why do people fight you and Empower Mississippi so much, or even on this program, the backlash from people like the Parents Campaign, when ultimately we want the learning environment to be better? We want competition to come. And if they are so much for the kids, why the pushback from these people?
Well, I think I think you just answered your own question. I think there's a lot of people that don't want what's best for kids. I think their focus is on the system and the adults in the system and budgets and the status quo. And if you really take a laser-focused approach on students and you look at what is in the best interest of students and families, you just can't argue that parents need more options. And it just comes from this notion that every child is unique. And we're asking districts to do something they can't possibly do, which is meet the needs of the unique needs of every individual student. No private school could do that. No charter school could do it perfectly. That's why we need options so that the people who know those kids best can shop around and match their kid with a better school. But I will tell you, I mean, you ask about charters. You know, when you think about school choice, you're really talking about three types of choice. One is charters. One is open enrollment, which is public school choice. And the others is private choice, and that's really, in Mississippi, we call it ESAs, Education Savings Accounts. You've talked about these for a long time. And all three of those have different audiences and different, but they all provide options for families. The one that is really growing by leaps and bounds across the country is the private choice. ESAs are exploding around the country.
But Grant, collectively, you could put all of those students in a room. I mean, there's not that many across the state, is it?
No, currently it's very few. We have some of the most challenging open enrollment laws, but I think that's changing.
I got to ask you this question, and I've never broached this question with you before because I really don't know. Let's just say that it was the law of the land now to say that public education. That money can go wherever it wants to. I'm not sure what it is in the state of Mississippi. At one point, it was like $8,000 or $9,000 per student.
It's over $12,000 now.
It's over $12,000 per student now.
The combined federal, state, and local money per student money that we spend on kids is over $12,000.
Okay, if it's over $12,000, and you had someone who wants to get into the business, just like private prisons, and don't connect those two as together in any other way. But just like private competing with the public or being an ancillary to that, if somebody wanted to come in and say, I want to we're not talking about public or private schools. We're just talking about starting a business offering schools, and they feel like they can make money off of $12,000. Does that happen anywhere in this country that you know about?
Absolutely. And it looks differently in different places. So in some states, that looks like charter schools. And some states require that charters be nonprofit. Like in Mississippi, you can't be a for-profit opening a charter. You have to be a nonprofit opening a charter. But some states do allow for-profit charters. But I'd say
it would be the same thing as a for-profit charter then.
Sure.
For the most part. Yeah.
Although in some states, really the most deregulated, the fastest growing way to do that is through ESAs, where money follows the child and then parents can pool their resources. And it's not this onerous approval process that are like we see with charters, where it's a multi-year, sometimes a 4-year process to get approved to open a charter. Parents are pooling their resources, and in states like Arizona, where every family is eligible for a scholarship account, at least the state portion follows the child. That's usually $6,000 or $7,000. And they're opening all kinds of innovative schools that are meeting students' needs in different ways. In fact, Florida, over the last 10 years, has opened 700 new private schools in a response to all of the school choice options that are available in Florida.
Those are for-profit or nonprofit?
Oh, I think I actually don't know what their law is related to for-profit, but I think the lion's share of that is most private schools around the country are nonprofit.
Everywhere we see this, we see where competition has actually been beneficial for the existing schools.
That's right.
And that argument goes, it's a clearly divided line of support between Democrats and Republicans, not only in Mississippi, but nationwide. And that's where all eyes are going to be on Mississippi, because with the Republicans in control, House, Senate, something has to be done coming up in this next legislative session, one way or the other. We'll continue this conversation with Grant Callen, founder, CEO of Empower Mississippi. Clive Stafford Smith. Lance, you say he is a British fellow?
That's what I read. Yes, sir.
Co-founder of Reprieve. We'll give you an update on the Tasha Shelby's case, and that's coming up at 8:05. Back with say, not all heroes wear capes. Sometimes they are rock a crazy do. A group of 25 men across the country have made it to the final round, which, unfortunately for Grant and I, we will not be participating in. It's the final of the 2023 annual USA Mullet Championship. Voting is underway until Friday for finalists like Terry the Walmart Wolverine. You can almost see him. Panhandle Justice and some guy named the Carolina Shrimp Tail. What will the winner be judged on? It'll be based on a couple of things. Not only will a panel critique the hairstyles based on length, style, uniqueness, and showmanship, but whoever makes the most donations to Jared Allen's homes for the Wounded Warriors on behalf of their favorite finalist will also go on the scale. There you are.
I have never been tempted by the mullet craze.
No, I haven't either. It's I'll leave that to country singers and other people. So, all right. So, here's one on the C Spire text line. It's rather lengthy. Let me read just a little. I live in what's considered a top 10 district in Mississippi to outsiders. Truth is, it's a joke. No discipline, gender swapping, bathroom issues are kept quiet as to not alarm the parents. Kids in middle school caught sexual acts on school property. They worry about nothing but those tests, et cetera, et cetera. So competition is good. And I mentioned a little bit earlier, too. Sometimes if you got away from the administration and you left it to these teachers, good teachers, our schools would look nothing like they do today. I sincerely believe that.
Oh, we've got some great teachers across the state, and we've got some great districts. And, I love that question or the comment because even the best districts don't meet the needs of every student well. And parents care about their kids, and they want what's best for their kids. And sometimes that is a great public school. Sometimes it's homeschool. Sometimes it's private school. And we've got to this is one of the, I think, fatal flaws of the charter school law that passed in 2013 is that we said charters can only be opened in the failing school districts. And like I said, we only have 6 of those in the state now. And beyond that, you sort of created this narrative that choice is a punishment for districts that can't get their act together. And it's so much more than that. School choice and education freedom or parent choice, whatever you want to call it, is about making sure every student has their needs met. And I'm committed that when we have bills before the legislature and we expand choice and open new options, we can't just limit this to certain districts that the state deems unsatisfactory. Because your listener made the point well. It's about making sure every parent has the ability to match their child with the best setting. And that's what a lot of states are doing. And you and I have been talking about this for a long, long time. And in the last 2 years, this is exploding around the country. In fact, just in the last 2 years, there are now 10 states that have universal eligibility ESA, meaning any child in the state is eligible to use public dollars to shop around.
ESA is Educational Savings Account for folks who don't know. Plus,
that's right.
It's just basically saying the money that you're spending, you can spend it on taxes to support this education. You can take it elsewhere. You can take it school.
You can take it to a private school, which is different from open enrollment, where you can choose between a public school. So that's really where, when we hear from lawmakers, there may be bills on all 3 of types of choice, but I fully anticipate in January you're going to see at least 2 bills, two categories of bills, a set of bills about ESAs, Education Savings Account, private choice, and a set of bills that would expand charters to additional districts.
He is Grant Callen, founder and CEO of Empower Mississippi. Grant, what you get from the other side that push back is that, you're going to have these flood into private schools. All of our money is going to go into private schools. They don't have any place to put these. In good schools, they're good because they have order. They're going to flood in there. All of those things, it's just hogwash, number one, because there's so many other things that they'd have to jump over. First of all, if they have no room, what do you have to do? Build onto it, put mobile homes on the outside? And that's got to come from the governing authority of that school district. And if they don't do it, then they're limited to what they have.
You're right. Every school has capacity issues.
Yes.
And, independent schools, private schools already have admissions policies. So in some cases, they, some Catholic schools say, well, we have a preference for kids that are Catholic. Or some Christian covenant schools say we have a preference for kids that have one parent who's a believer. Or you have schools that focus on STEM, or you have schools that focus on this or that. So nothing with ESAs would force a private school to accept a child they don't have room for or they can't accommodate. But what you would see is the private school landscape is dynamic. People are starting schools every day to meet the needs of students in innovative ways. And ESAs would add fuel to that fire because every educator who thought that they could provide a better education or got tired of teaching to the test would step out and say, let's open a school in my community. And we're seeing that all over the state. Just in the last year, there have been micro schools, little small private schools opened in every corner of the state. There's been about 12 that we've worked with over the last year and a half. And many of those are former public school educators who are just frustrated with the bureaucracy and the teaching to the test and the mandates. And they've stepped out. And a lot of these are African-American moms who are stepping out to open schools to help their kids get a better education.
When we have the African-American moms or dads get behind this, it's going to be a whole new ball game, because one of the big blocks on this has been the Black Caucus, and when they're against something like that, it turns to a racial situation, as you well know. But if you take this though, Grant, you look at it in this manner, what comes before the student's education in where we are now? And get a piece of paper out and look. The possibility that school is going to close or lose some federal dollars, from the mayor to the city board to the Chamber of Commerce to the football team to the people who are feeding on that. And if you don't think there are a lot of, and I say teats on this, associated with that school, go to the website of any school and start looking at the amount of dollars it takes before you get to the classroom. It will blow your mind. Look at the number of jobs. There are so many jobs on there, and they're all full.
And
it's an employment factory for your little town.
And that's the challenge with, as I mentioned, we now have more than $12,000 per year per student going to educate kids in the public education system.
How much of that goes to the classroom?
And a ton of it does not ever make it there. It gets to the top. And so choice helps make sure everybody who's providing an education is laser focused on the customer. And who's the customer in education? It's kids and families and meeting their needs. And today, if a failing public school doesn't meet the needs of students, those kids can't go anywhere. So they don't have to change. A choice system would put the parents in the driver's seat, let them control the funds, and it gives all the incentive in the world for everybody to be radically focused on making sure students are getting what they need to be successful.
I believe in California, I thought I heard $25,000 per student in California, $20,000 to $25,000.
Oh, yeah. I think New York is above 30, 35 now.
No.
It is extraordinary how much money is going per student across the country. And
I don't think I ought to be a bad guy to say this, but I can envision Walmart K through 12 and see how the efficiency would be on that. I'll bet you that kid gets a damn good education. Walmart's K through 12. Just an idea, guys. Just an idea. I'm not sure what the football team would look like.
Well, and it's interesting. The Walton Family Foundation that is behind the Walmart folks are heavily involved in education and have invested in charters and choice around the country. The home of Walmart, Arkansas, is Governor Sanders just passed a landmark school choice program that did just what we're talking about. Every kid in the state of Arkansas now has the opportunity.
When we come back, who in the southern states, I think one of the Carolinas just did it, but who in the southern states have school choice? We'll ask you that final segment. Coming up next with Grant Callen, founder, CEO. Speaking of education here, If you got a roll of paper and you took a number 2 leaded pencil, and you just drew a straight line, just for your information, since we're on an educational note here, that line would go how long before you use the pencil up? 35 miles. I don't know why you would need to know this, but you could also write 45,000 words. There's enough graphite in the average pencil to draw a line 35 miles long. That is 45,000 words. So there you go. It might be a trivia question. You never know coming up.
Did you try this out this morning?
No, I have the paper ordered, but I just don't have the layout yet, so we're working on that. I did, in the intervening time here, answer my own question as far as what states. You said ESA programs for students include Utah, which is one of the hottest states right now, by the way, South Carolina, Iowa, Arkansas, as you mentioned, Montana. States also that have recently expanded their ESAs or converted existing programs to ESAs, Florida, Indiana, New Hampshire, and the state of Tennessee.
It is coming. That is the message. It is coming to Mississippi. It's a matter of when and how, and let's not be the 40th or 45th state to do this. Let's learn from the states that have done it. Let's get great legislation. Let's design it well, and let's do it. And let's be on the front end instead of the back end.
It was 2 years ago. I think maybe it wasn't last session. It was session before that. I got in kind of a heated argument with someone who is in a power position as far as education is concerned in the state legislature. And it wasn't an argument, but I pushed back to the point where when we brought this up, this was off the air, he said, I just don't know how it could work in Mississippi. And that just tweaked me the wrong way. If it works in these other states, why the hell wouldn't it work in Mississippi? And if you can't find a way, get somebody else who can find a way.
That's exactly right. Every one of the questions has answers, and we have models we can look at. And look, the state that has been doing this the longest, really Arizona and Florida. You and I have talked about Florida before. 20 years ago, Florida had one of the worst education systems in the nation for their public school performance. A bunch of leaders focused on choice instead of just funding the system. They increased funding, but they made sure parents controlled it and parents could move their kids around. So Florida has more choice than anywhere else. They've had it the longest. 1 in 2 kids in Florida are today enrolled in a school that's not the one they're zoned for, which means, a lot of those are still in public school. It's just a different public school. The end result, 20 years later, is Florida is in the top 10 in a lot of rankings, top 5 in a lot of other rankings for their education system. And the more kids that choose, and again, half the kids in the state are choosing now, the more kids choose, it's been a rising tide that has lifted all better. They've created 700 new private schools. Their public schools are doing better than ever. We've just got to learn from the states that do it well. And look, I'm excited. I think I've heard your interviews with a lot of these lawmakers. They're talking about school choice more than they ever have been, and we've got new interest and new passion at the Capitol that are ready to do some big things on choice.
And on the national scene, I'm encouraged by a couple of actually more than a couple of the Republican candidates or possible candidates, talking presidential candidates, talking about getting rid of the Department of Education. I think that would be a good step, number one. And we're talking about in Washington, the Department of Education. So.
Oh, yeah, Tennessee is talking about just stopping, saying maybe we don't need federal money for special and for education into the state, and we'll just spend state dollars. And so there's some things you would have to make sure we do, particularly related to kids with special needs. A lot of that is federal money currently, but in a lot of places, the Department of Ed is not helping.
We still don't have a head honcho for the Department of Education here, do we?
We don't. There's an interim, but they have, and I think they're in the middle of a search for a new state superintendent. But I would just say to your listeners that are out there, this the choice stuff we're talking about is not going to happen. As much as I would love to think that you and I can do it ourselves, it's not going to happen because you're talking about it, I'm talking. It's going to happen when parents get excited about this. They raise their voice. They go on social media. They come to the Capitol. So I would say two things parents can do. One, if you're interested in opening a school, reach out to us. Embark.ms is our whole project related to helping school founders start schools. We want to help you do it. And then two, if you want to get involved in this education freedom world, school choice, go to our website, empowerms.org, and reach out. We'd love to talk to you.
Grant Callen, thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much.